Welcome to the 6th edition of one of the most influential mountain bike races in Spain, the Gigante de Piedra, quite literally translated as the Stone Giant. It takes place amongst the tracks, paths and trails of the province of Castellón, the second most mountainous region in the whole of Spain. All of this under the imposing presence of Pico Peñagolosa, the roof of Castellón, and one of the most beautiful mountains in the region of Valencia. The race organiser Manolo Malol had this to say. The difference with perhaps an area like the Pyrenees, which is a beautiful area, is that there are tracks are much more broken, have a lot less grip, and therefore look very similar to each other. So I think the race is hard, but also a little special. Now the start and finish line are located in the town of Alcora, and the route goes through 13 towns, 11 in the province of Castellón and 2 in the province of Teruel, including the mythical mountain Peñagolosa. This is the mayor of the town, Victor Garcia y Tomas. Now the city of Alcora has become a very important event in recent years, not just for us, but also for the participants of the race. And this year we have the record with over 1,000 people signing up for the race. And you have to add that to all the families and friends joining them too. And the fact that it starts and finishes in our town and then goes through our villages is something that makes it the most important sporting event of the year for us. Now the event itself has the support of the Royal Spanish Cycling Federation, and the registration sold out way in advance, and the participants had to choose between 2 distances: the Gigante Ultramaratón, 200 kilometers in length, and then the Gigante Small, still long at 100 kilometers in length. And on your screen there, the rather distinctive hair, Tinker Juarez, the former American champion, into the autumn of his career now, but the defending champion in the Gigante de Piedra.
It's the biggest race in Spain, and for me, it's one of the hardest one of the whole year. I enjoy the country. I love the mountains here. It reminds me of like California, very dry, not too big of trees, and there's a lot of sun here. So and the people are the nicest people I meet when I travel.
Well, Tinker Juarez, a real hero of the sport, came from mountain biking and a BMX, and a real legend, of course, a 2-time winner of this event, and a real firm favourite with the crowd here. His name isn't really Tinker, it's actually David. His mum and dad used to call him Stinker when he was young. And that name, well, it stuck, but with the S taken off. Manolo Malol, the organiser, says we're very happy because this is the 6th edition that we're going to organise, but it incorporates the Spanish Ultramarathon Championships for the very first time. It's the prize for 6 years of hard work, and we are thrilled that in these 6 editions people have finished tired but happy, which is the most important thing in the end and what we aim for as organisers. And one of the main riders to watch out for is the 2016 Spanish Ultramarathon champion, Brandon Marquez. There was this to say about this race. The main factors are the distance, 200 kilometers in length, but significantly with 6,500 meters of a positive gradient or elevation gain, making it very, very difficult. There's some very hard, uneven ramps, and the profile can be very, very deceptive because the climbs don't seem too long, but with 6.5 kilometers of elevation gain, it is going to be very, very hard indeed. He certainly is right. This is an absolute brute of an event, but people coming from all over the world. A party atmosphere, in fact. Riders, as we said before, can opt for the 200-kilometre route, which has its own time cut-off, or for the slightly shorter 100-kilometre route, which amusingly is called small, but that is far from the case. Now the 200-kilometre ultramarathon runs through Castellón and actually starts at 6 AM on the Saturday and crosses through places like Soldos, Vistabella and Maestrat, Cortes de Orense or Ludiente. And the organisers have arranged 10 time-controlled checkpoints that can be reached by the cyclists before the time cup, so they're not disqualified. There's a big handshake for the defending champion Tinker Juarez. Now, due to the difficulty, the hardness of this race, there are 12 refreshment points located along the route, and 3 of them actually contain mechanic stops as well, making sure the riders can keep their bikes as maintained as they can. Chains lubricated. Of course, they may face rain and dust, but as you can see, a real celebration on the start line. Friends, family, crowd turning out to urge these riders on a day that will be epic and will live long in the memory. Now this is what the riders face for the long event, the 200-kilometer Gigante de Piedra. There it is, situated on the map. A large loop, but that is the most significant statistic. 6,500 meters of vertical elevation gain on this course. And their organisers have set a time limit of 17 hours. It should be enough to see most people home. Now, as we mentioned before, there are 12 aid stations along the route to make sure the riders are fueled, refreshed and hydrated. And within those, there are 3 mechanic stations as well. Now, Roberto Meri says, well, we're here in Alcora with the Gigante de Piedra small race about to start. It's definitely going to be hard, because even though it says it's small, it has 100 kilometers nonetheless. We will probably ride for between 5 and 7 hours, and hopefully we'll have a good time and finish. That is the most important thing. The giant small category course, an oxymoron if ever I've heard one, started 30 minutes later at 6:30 in the morning on the Saturday, offering mountain bike enthusiasts a challenge of a very, very difficult 100-kilometer circuit with 5 controls, helping with the cut-off times located in Lucena del Cid, Villamalefa Castle, Rio de Lucena, Lucena del Cid, and Pla de Taladores. Now at the beginning, it shares the first 30 kilometers with the larger course and then continues on its own course, created especially for the distance. And as you can see there, even the small event has 3,600 meters of elevation gain with a time cut-off of 9 hours. Still a very, very tough challenge indeed. Now, one of the early race leaders who went out very, very fast indeed was Gilbert Mil of Spain in that distinctive black and pink kit. And this is one of those very technical parts of the circuit. Now, this isn't only a challenge of endurance and stamina, but technical prowess is also the order of the day. And that's a Brandon Marquez just going through. He is the defending ultramarathon champion of Spain. And of course, incorporated within this event is the Spanish Ultramarathon Championships, where the riders will participate and fight for the coveted Spanish champions jersey.
The race for me is like the first half. When you get to the halfway point, it's still, you got a long ways to come back, and there's a lot of hard things in the race. I remember one part of the race, there's about maybe 20 kilometers of really rough road, like all rocks. And for me, that's going to be a very hard point, a very hard part of the whole race.
Well, the twice winner in 2014 and 2016, Tinko Juarez, will of course be classed for the Spanish Championships. But one of the riders that can is on your screen right now, Guillem Munoz of the Catalonian squad. A very, very strong competitor indeed, lightweight, wiry, very well equipped for this sort of course, as of course is Tinko Juarez, as we look at that wonderful view of the hills. It really is a spectacle, man against the elements and the landscape as well. And this is one of the feed stations that pepper the course. Absolutely vital for the riders, not only to get nutrition on board, but also to make sure the bikes are well maintained. Brandon Marquez, the defending champion, has said this year might be one where the riders have the highest level of competition. I think the best people in the sport are competing here this year, and there's not many people left of those who are usually ahead in the BTT races in Spain. That certainly is for sure, but look at Munoz there, full of fight, even waving as he rides in front of Tinko Juarez. Riders having to pace themselves, strategize on this course, because believe you me, if you go out too early, you really will pay. So, technical skill and the ability to pace yourself. You need to study the routes, but you also need to know how to measure your effort and understand yourself, both physically and mentally.
it's going to be a really hard race. It's more than 10 hours, so it's going to be big mountains, a lot of climbing. You have to eat a lot. It's going to be the biggest turnout this year. I think more than 700 riders. So I think the competition is going to be much harder. So yeah, I hope to have a good race.
Well, Tinkerale is such an experienced campaigner, and you would not write him off at all, as he knows these roads oh so well, as does the defending ultramarathon champion Brandon Marquez. But it was Gilbert Mil who set the early ferocious pace. Could he hold on to the end? And also the women's event was running concurrently with the men. We'll catch up with how they got on after the break. Welcome back to the Gigante de Piedra. A long day, and as I mentioned before the break, the women running concurrently with the men. And on your screen now is Janet Solsona. She's a Catalan riding for the Blue Motors de Pont team, and also there Clara Perla riding for the Aragon squad. A very good ultramarathon rider indeed. Laura Belletta, another one of the female competitors today. He says, for me the race is important because of all the ultramarathons. There are races where you have to be mentally strong all the way to the finish. A mixture of everything, both physical and indeed mental. Well, she certainly is right. You have to be on your A game, as they say. And one of the riders who was on his A game early in the event was Gilbert Mil, a very experienced campaigner, and there he is picking his way through the rubble of the ruined farms in this part of the world. An absolutely beautiful spectacle, and you can see the hardy spectators camped out cheering on these riders, helping them get through what is a very arduous day. But just look at that, absolutely brutal, shaking the bodies, shaking the minds. And as we said, this is a test of everything, physical test of endurance, and a real examination of skill on these bikes. Many of these bikes have suspension on at the front, will all have suspension on at the front. They run a single gear, what we call a one-by, with a very large ratio at the back to get up these awesome, brutal climbs. Gradients of up to 25–30% at times. And of course, riders need an opportunity to rest and recuperate. Well, this is Manolo Malo, the organiser again. We offer a wide variety of food throughout the 200 kilometres. For instance, on the top of the mountain, without any people or civilization, we have a refreshment point offering cold horchata, which is a typical Valencian beverage, and people just can't believe it when they see it. Real attention to detail from the race organisers. And of course, all of the competitors need attention to detail as well. They need to make sure they're prepared for this. This isn't an event to be taken lightly at all. One of the competitors just riding through there on a monofork. And so tough was the gradient on this particular section, of course, that many of the riders were actually reduced to walking. And as you can see by the size of the cogs at the back of the bike, the riders there in their lowest gear. And the Janet Solsona, the leader in the ladies event, looking very strong as she picks her way gently up that climb, spinning that gear. But not too far behind was Clara Perla from the Aragon team. Again, riding deftly over these cobbles, over the rocks, and spinning that low gear to a very appreciative crowd. And meanwhile, hours behind, the competitors continue to climb their way up. And remember, brutally difficult day, 6,500 meters of elevation gain. So important that the riders make sure they're fueled and hydrated. Some carbs there too, getting the bananas down them. But equally as important as making sure you're hydrated is making sure your machine is fully lubricated and working. Because it's no good having a fit mind and body if your machine fails you. Deep into the race now, and the rider just on the front of this small group of riders, that was Guillem Munoz, running for the Catalonian team. Had a good season so far, So one of the real protagonists today won a race in Catalonia, but our leader for much of the race, Hubert Mil, there in the black and pink, well, he spent 140 kilometers in front before capitulating near the end. This is what defending champion Brandon Marquez had to say of the race. Now, this year the Spanish Championships have had the highest quality of riders for many, many years, and there were 7 of us in the group just behind the sole leader, who was out in front for many, many kilometers. He did generate a show, but because of the nature of this brutal course, there was always a doubt in our minds, do we go after him or not? And you know what? It was actually a lot of fun. And I think the spectators would agree. But it wasn't just the elite riders battling for the championships, and of course that Spanish jersey. Many riders were to spend hours out there, having prepared for months on end, getting themselves into peak physical condition, urged on by the crowd, and also urged on by the investment in themselves. The woman in blue and white, Janet Solsona of the Catalonia Blue Motors team, definitely pedalling up the climb, making it look so easy, but like everybody else, although she was out in front, she had to make sure that she got everything she needed on board. Lots of carbohydrates, lots of fuel, and you can just see on her back there, that isn't a rucksack containing nothing, that is a camelback system of hydration. Very warm conditions out here today, and this is Clara Perla of the Aragon team. Again, pedaling very nicely. The riders strewn all over this beautiful countryside. Janet Solsona making it look very
easy
indeed. Well, Clara Perla had this to say.
The
most complicated moment of the entire race was in fact the last 20 kilometers, and it seemed that the race would never end. I don't know why, but maybe it's because it looks like you're getting there and you never do. With the slow pace up these long climbs, I can see what she means, but what goes up must come down. So 6,500 meters up into the air, and they also come down the other side again. And that's the fun part of riding your mountain bike, picking your way through different sorts of terrain, a lovely loam in the forests, and of course the gravel trails as well. Real savage ascents and descents. And this is the leader who overtook Hubert Mil. This is Joseba Albizu, a former road rider, very classy bike rider indeed. Started his trade on the road back in 2003 with the Mercatone Uno team, and actually competed in the Vuelta España in 2004, and that is a real illustration of the class of this rider. But even Gulab Munoz there in the blue, reduced to walking. Such is the steepness of these gradients, and of course fatigue this deep into the race really starting to set in. It really is mind over matter. Well, the Gigante Small was taking place, of course, at the same time. Started half an hour after the big event. But the winner of the Gigante Small was Julian Moya, there being interviewed. A big day out for him, riding for the Cross New Race team. But thumbs up all round, and all of these riders, even riding the Gigante Small, equally deserving of their plaudits. The crowd are there to congratulate them, and that was the first woman across the line. That is Cristina La Cruz. Looked absolutely delighted, lifting her bike aloft. High fives all round, families there to see. Proud moments for every single finisher, an emotional time as well, just showing what it means to every single participant. Now 4 or 5 hours after the finish of the Gigante Small, the small matter of the winner of the Gigante 200 kilometers, and it was this man, Joseba Albizu, in the yellow, arms aloft, who became the new Spanish ultra marathon winner. Handshakes all round from his entourage, friends and family there too. What a big day out. Second place, 6 minutes adrift, Guillem Munoz. A great ride from him. And in third place, the defending champion Brandon Marquez, a mere 14 seconds behind Munoz in the silver medal position, but looks pretty happy with his lot. Tinko Juarez, a living legend of mountain biking, and finished only 40 minutes down at 56 years of age. But here's a few words from our winner, Joseba Albizu. Well, the feelings I had in the second half of the race were very good. When we started, I wasn't quite feeling myself, but in the second half, I was already getting better and better. Now, since I did it last year, I already knew that the final section was going to be extremely hard, and that last 50 kilometers would seem endless. Last year, I lost the race in that section, and that's the exact same spot where I won it this year. Now, the second place rider on the day was Guilherme Munoz. Now, this is the first time I've ridden this particular championship. I've been told that it would be hard, and indeed it was. In the end, I was able to get second place, but Joseba was very impressive indeed and ran a very good race. I usually do all kinds of races, marathons and road races, and I'm pretty happy. Now, the rider in the bronze medal position, Brandon Marquez. Once the race was settled in the last 40 kilometers and Albizu took the lead, Guilherme kept up with his pace, but I just couldn't handle it. I pushed it a little when there was only 1 kilometer left, but all I could do was look at him take the win. Every rider that crossed the line today was a winner, but the out-and-out winner of the women's event was Janet Solsona. First place for her, a wonderful ride, dominant ride, and there is the second place rider crossing the line, Clara Perlo. A fine silver medal position for her after a long and difficult day in the saddle. And third place on the day was Isabel Marin. A fantastic ride by all women in this event.
Al principio he ido guardando un poquito el ritmo.
Solsona, at first I was keeping up a very good pace, controlling myself. But then, 20 kilometers in, my head went south and I had to take it down a notch and take it step by step. And then when I saw that Clara was just behind me, I pushed harder to see if I could make it, and I got to the finish line first. But it was a very close call. Now the silver place rider, Clara Perla. It was a very demanding race, but I paced it right so I could last the distance as I didn't know the course. I thought it was very beautiful, and I managed to finish far higher than I thought I would. So moments for the riders to savour on the podium, which is clearly in keeping with the surrounding area. And there is Tinker Juarez receiving his prize for the third time in his career. A special moment for every single medalist, but the top spot reserved for those donning the Spanish champion's jersey. So a brutal yet memorable day for all participants. And to put it into perspective, the riders in the 200-kilometer Gigante de Piedra have climbed more than the equivalent height of Mount Kilimanjaro, all on steep, twisting gravel tracks. But for now, from the province of Castellón in Spain, it's goodbye.